evokes strong memories that so many of us have had in our lifetime. And because it was being such a happy home, and so it will also stir up memories from your own childhood, whether it is planting flowers in the garden with your mother or grilling in the backyard with your dad. There are so many great little memories and nuggets in here, and it can be something as simple as finding a date in the book that resonates with you, which is exactly what happened with me. So it is, when I read that a picture of June, Marietta's mother, June's Kitchen was dressed up for Christmas, and it was published in the Richmond Times-Dispatch, which is my hometown newspaper, on December 18th. The floodgates opened. Not only was that my hometown newspaper, but that was my dad's birthday. And my dad and Marietta hold a very special connection. He grew up just 2 doors down from Marietta, and she introduced my mother and my father. So for that reason, I will be forever grateful to her, because they are my best friends. And so now, without any further ado, please give a warm welcome to my friend, Marietta.
I'm paying, Hayden. Good evening, everybody. We're going to have a really good time. I've known Hayden since the day she was born and started loving her then. I had a million stories to choose from, and thanking her for introducing me, but the one that I'm going to tell, and it's very brief, came to me today when I was walking through the ocean. And when Hayden was about 5 or 6, we'd been at St. Simon's Island, and my favorite pair of flip-flops broke, and I was really sad. And Hayden exhibited the greatest empathy for what must have seemed so strange to a 5-year-old child, and we buried those flip-flops and had a ceremony in the sand. And Hayden didn't say very much, and we were walking back to the house, and she said, "Well, I guess money isn't everything." And what I like about remembering that is it's a big part of the theme of my book, Leaving 1203. So I'm going to talk to you about the book, and I'm going to emphasize a chapter that's called The Messenger Bag that I'm going to talk about specifically because I'm here at the Beaches Museum. And then what I'm really looking forward to are your questions and comments, and my books are back there if you'd like to get them personalized. So thank you to Chris for having me here, and such a warm welcome. So the subtitle of the book, Leaving 1203, and Hayden's dad lived at 1210, is Emptying the Home, Filling the Heart. So in 2013, I emptied my childhood home of 56 years that was beloved by 4 generations. And everybody loved this simple 3-bedroom house that still doesn't have central air, on a dead-end street, wooded dead-end street, in Richmond's West End, not far, if any of you know Richmond, from the University of Richmond. And when I was faced with this prospect, which I dreaded, I was struck by 2 very different things that were both true at the same time. The first is, it is such a deeply personal experience to leave the home you love for the last time. And if you feel that no one else has ever faced this, and no one else has ever been as sad, or as sweaty, or as grouchy as you are at the moment. And at the same time, which you also know somewhere, is everyone faces this in some way. You leave a home you love, you leave your dorm room that you love, you leave an office where you loved your career, whatever it is, when you close that door for the last time, it is a very difficult, painful human experience. So in Leaving 1203, I tell the story of the 3 months of home emptying from May to August of 2013. I live in Charlottesville, an hour away, so there was a lot of back and forth, a few sleepovers, but a lot of back and forth. I was compelled to write the book. It's not like, this is my fourth book, it's not like my other books, but I knew standing in that house with those all these competing emotions, that I had to tell this story. There is a story here and I have to tell it. What is the story? I had no idea. I had no idea what the story was that I could tell that would reach readers, that would take you home, wherever that is for you. So, filling the heart, the second part of the subtitle, I would never have dreamed how positive and uplifting this experience was for me. I wouldn't have dreaded it as long as I had. And I left those for the last time in 2013 when I closed the back door with my feet planted more firmly on the earth, with greater love for the people who loved me first, who I thought I knew and got to know a lot better that summer, and with a deeper sense of belonging to the world and in the world. I couldn't believe it. So, for those 3 months, yes, there was physical labor, but it was also almost a meditative experience for me. I locked down and concentrated, sometimes lost in concentration, on everything before me. So I touched or saw everything in the house. And it is amazing how much was in that house and in the garage. So I know you know that. When I say the word garage, I know you know. That was a week-long journey through the garage. So I was totally locked in to the present, which at the same time opened up memories, crystal clear memories of those 56 years of all the love that was shared in that house. And so I gave myself over to whatever I had to learn for these 3 months. And that brick house on a hill was the best teacher I ever had. It was a refresher course in good living. So the book is a little over 4 months old now. It travels really well, never cries, never complains. It's a good baby. And what I was just going to tell you a couple of reader responses or some general responses from readers up to this point. One of my favorite, and I get some variation of this from time to time if they're anywhere near Charlottesville, is, hey, really like your new book. Any chance you want to come over to 902? There is no chance I want to come over to 902. The stories that people share about their own memories of home and what home means to them has been invaluable. I wouldn't trade anything for that. And when we share stories, I think that's what binds us as human beings, is we find out how much we really have in common. Not how different we are, but how much we have in common. One reader wrote, your book is a love poem. Another reader wrote, the house is the star of this book. Your dog Billy is the leading actor, and you are somewhere in the background. That was a favorite. I really liked that one. So, my other books are about making philosophy accessible. And so I'm going to tell you how I define philosophy and then tell you the question I'm getting now. People are saying, is Leaving 1203 a philosophy book? So I'm going to tell you what I mean. By philosophy, I mean the art of clear thinking, mental clarity about what really matters. In that sense, it's a philosophy book. Because the brick house on the hill reminded me what really matters most. So yes, in that sense it is. And readers are using the book practically in 2 ways, usefully in 2 ways. Emptying or downsizing. There's a primer in the back with suggestions for how to do it that I learned that summer. And they're also using it as a manual for good living. And so I will tell you just a few of the things I was reminded of as I reflected in emptying the house. 1203 excelled at its last job. The old home served as a gentle yet powerful teacher, its walls and windows sometimes murmuring and at other times shouting the core lessons for good living. While readying for new dwellers, it delivered an unforgettable refresher course in the things that really matter: relationship, generosity, gratitude, courage, simplicity, sacrifice, hospitality, joy, perseverance, relaxation, responsibility, humor, and humility. Timeless truths, trusty guides for well-being, now my keepsakes forever. And perhaps the question I get most, or comment I get most from readers, is a comment on the cover of the book. And the books, again, you can see this more clearly when you're in the back. So here is the cover, and it is an old door with a glass knob slightly open with a 10-year-old child walking away from the house. And so they tell me how, they rightly say, how beautiful 1203 is, and about the picture of me as a child. It is not me. I mean, it is me, but it isn't me. And what happened is that David Held is the photographer at the Guggenheim, and he specializes in architecture. And he read the manuscript and wanted to participate. What would you like? And I said, I would like an old door left open with a distinctive knob. And so this is on his property in Connecticut. And as he was he turned to speak to someone, and when he turned back, a child happened to be exploring his property, and he caught her in this particular frame right here. So David Held said, I've done it all. I hang from helicopters and photograph buildings to get three-dimensional images. I've done it all. But capturing you in 2018 at age 10 is the greatest feat I have ever accomplished. And so it is a sort of a magical cover in that sense. So a little bit about writing the book. I think this is the book in which I learned to write. It was a magical, creative experience. I started, usually when you write a book, you have a plan, a goal, you know the point of the book. I had a puzzle with no pieces. And so for a couple of years, I just let thoughts come and go, and remembered things, and thought back on the experience, and looked through photographs and letters again, more thoroughly this go around. And when I began to write, it was as if inspiration were working right through me, and it was completely natural and unforced. Tremendous clarity. The more quiet I was, the more solitude, I think I've lost all my friends, the more solitary my life was, I was able to go back and get into that creative place that I was, meditative place I was, and emptying the home. Then, when I finished writing, and I think this is a very exciting place for a writer, it's my favorite part. I went back and sculpted it and took things out so that only what's essential is there, and that leaves enough room for the reader to come in and be in the house with me. Enough room for you to fit. There's no clutter in the book. So my promise is that when you come home with me, 1203, you go home yourself, wherever that may be. So early on in emptying, it was a responsibility that I knew would be mine. My mother entrusted me with this task. And early on, I had a sense of confidence that this was going to work out. I had no plan. I didn't know what to do with anything except what family and friends would like, and they would come by the house. But my mother gave me no directions. She trusted me to do it. So one afternoon, after walking Billy the dog, had been my mother's dog, now mine, I came back and began to go through this box in which my mother put everything that interested her all her life. And she said, this is my autobiography, it's right in this box, and so it was amazing. Some of the things I found in there were incredible, but I'm going to read you two of the things that I found that pretty much set me on my way writing. I pulled out 2 yellowing clippings. One I'd read in disbelief and would reread tonight. The other required the magnifying glass, and even so I squinted at the fading print of ageless baseball player Satchel Paige's Tips for Good Living. 1. Avoid fried meats, they angry up the blood. 2. If your stomach disputes you, lie down and pacify it with cool thoughts. 3. Keep the juices flowing by jangling around as you move. 4. Go very lightly on the vices, such as carrying on in society. 5. Personal favorite, avoid running at all times. 6. Don't look back. Something might be gaining on you. What a holiday. I turned off the front and back stoop lights, tucked into my childhood bed, eyes as wide as Billy's. I read the second clipping again. E.B. White's acceptance speech for his 1971 National Medal for Literature. What struck my mother about his words? Quote, I've always felt that the first duty of a writer was to ascend, to make flights, carrying others along if he could manage it. Despair is no good, for the writer, for anyone. Only hope can carry us aloft, can keep us afloat. Writing itself is an act of faith, nothing more. And it must be the writer, above all others, who keeps it alive. Satchel, something might be gaining on me. So, very early on, particularly looking at photographs and reading letters not originally intended for me, but letters that had been written to my parents from other people, there was a major shift in perspective. And this was no longer a really hard job. It was an opportunity. I knew that house had lessons to teach me and secrets to share. I was going to find out things that I didn't know. And I realized who else was supposed to live, empty this house. I was the first grandchild and spoiled by my grandmother beyond all measure, beloved by my parents. Who else was supposed to do this work? And so it became an opportunity. That was a huge shift. It made all the difference. So not long ago, I was involved in an NPR interview about the book. And the interviewer, the show was With Good Reason, if any of you have ever heard that, with Sarah McConnell. It's going to air this spring. She had tears coming down her face, and she said, because she'd emptied her mother's house not long before, she said, wasn't it like you were saying goodbye to your parents? And my answer was, it was as if I were saying hello to them in a new way, because I knew them better. They, besides being my parents, they're real people who had a life before me. And one of those humbling things about this was finding so many photographs that proved their joy before I was around. So apparently they were getting along just fine. They were high school students. They were kids. They had these rich, full-bodied lives. So that was just, I wouldn't trade anything for what I learned about that. So I'll give you a couple of examples. My daredevil grandmother, nicknamed Plum, who raised 2 single girls during the Depression, and for the last couple of years of her life she lived at 1203. She wasn't just my grandmother, but she was a 13-year-old girl who, when her mother died, essentially raised her 5 brothers and sisters and stopped her education to be able to do that. Nothing ever stopped her, but she discontinued her formal education at that time. I also found short stories that she had written during the Depression that got as far as an editor in New York and were sent back to her. So she was really close to publication. And if I'm tempted, I'm going to publish them under my own name and try to get away with it. It's amazing. So one of them, called Upstream, is 15,000 words longer than Leaving 1203. That's her idea of a short story. So the pictures of her with a big bow in her hair, with the children, her siblings who were then had become her children, that's more than my grandmother. That's her at that age. So my mother was jitterbugging long before I was around, and a high school beauty queen. And my father went to Washington Lee in Virginia, and I guess before my mother met him, she dated a cadet at VMI named George. And I'll always be thankful to George for what I found from him. I'm also thankful, and you'll know why, that George is not my father. So in this photograph, the cadet in full military dress is gazing down at my mother, who's looking ahead at the camera, and he's enclosed it, the photograph, in a long letter to her after she's broken off their relationship. And so the letter goes on and on and on and on. And then he signs it, "Love, George," and it's P.S. June. If you don't get this letter, please let me know. Oh, George. Oh, George. So my father, and tonight I'm going to talk about the chapter called The Messenger Bag. He never spoke about the war, Second World War. He was a Navy pilot, and I found his messenger bag, and he spoke to me that summer through the messenger bag. And so I have some things to share with you tonight. So, concerning the messenger bag, there is something about physical objects when you're responsible for doing something with them, for emptying a home. When they're left to speak for themselves, when my father's not there to explain to me anything about the messenger bag, he's left it, I have it, and there's no interpretation, there's no explanation. It's immensely powerful and very, very intimate to find things that way. My grandmother's short stories let me into her life, and she's just brought 2 children through the Depression, and she's now, the Second World War is getting ready to break out, and she's writing these short stories. Where did the energy come from? Who is this young woman who is doing this? So, even as I emptied the home, it felt lived in. For 3 months, I had help. Word spread that I could use help. Food helps. If you're in the process of emptying, food is always really important. Friends brought friends, neighbors brought neighbors, family brought friends. The day that I left and the house was completely empty and echoing with the walls and the pine floor, it felt full of all the people who had been there for 56 years. So the chapter titles are objects, and that's ironic in a way, but I chose objects that taught the greatest lessons as I was sparked the most vivid memories as I was emptying the house. And here's what becomes important about physical things. I have never been a material girl in any way, but everything mattered in that house when I was left to take care of what happened to those things, because they were tokens of all the lives that had been involved with those things. They were a token of all the relationships, all the fun, all the dinners, whatever had gone on with these things, and so everything mattered very, very much. So for the Beaches Museum, I'm going to talk a little bit about the messenger bag and the contents as an example of a physical thing and its meaning to me. So my father didn't talk about the war, as I mentioned. He talked about the friends he made, and it's when they're in training in Pensacola, and but not when the war starts. So he never talked about it. He was the most peaceful person I've ever met, and I never asked him about it because it just didn't seem necessary. So in the messenger bag, and some of these things are over there, I found his blue book, College Exams. And the one I brought tonight is his exam on Shakespeare, which I would swear he had cheated from my exam on Shakespeare 25 years later. So the teacher comments in the exam, is there. And then there are a lot of photos of Virginia Beach. I don't know how many of you have been to Virginia Beach, but that's where my parents met. My grandmother took her 2 girls from Richmond every summer for a little break, and they would go to Virginia Beach. And she saw my father, he was a lifeguard, working his way through college, and she said, one of you's got to bring him home. And so one of them did bring him home. And the photographs of those days, and I can imagine, so my father graduates from college in the summer of 42 and gets draft orders 2 weeks later to report for duty. And so imagining the transition from college boy to Navy pilot is unbelievable. But in those summers that began in 1940, 41, 42, you can see them soaking up every joy possible, every simple pleasure imaginable. The heads are always thrown back in laughter, and they're on the beach and they're together, just squeezing every ounce of joy out of life. I find his college photographs amazing. I think all of his friends would make really great dates for Saturday night. And they look like they're having such a good time. He worked his way through college in 3 years, working a full-time job, but had time for his friends and a good time. So I saw his draft orders, and they are so stark because I find the Shakespeare exams and the beach photographs, and then suddenly that you report to duty. And so holding them, I felt what as close as I could, what it must have felt to him to hold those draft orders. So you're going to go to Pensacola. He's an only child responsible for his mother, and so he's leaving the world that he knows to report for duty. So I have telegrams here, and I have a receipt from 1944 for a dozen red roses that my father sent my mother, and they're $8.10. And the florist is Fuqua and Sheffield in Richmond. It's still there, so if I mention a business in the book, I call to talk to them. So I called and asked and I got a Fuqua descendant. He said, that must have been my grandfather who would have done that, and this is in Norfolk. He said, this is the most beautiful story. I'm going to tell everybody in the shop, but I have bad news for you. What is that? The price has gone up. So also over here, I have photographs of my father and his crew, and the plane that they flew. The inside of the plane looks like a jalopy. I can't believe it was airborne to fly rescue missions and land the plane in the Pacific Ocean. The compass that he used, it's called an aerial dead reckoning computer. The compass he used, you can see the pencil marks where after however it worked, he made the marks where the plane was to land in the Pacific. And so just seeing that brings me so close to his experience. So just a little bit from the book about this part. So it was pretty much the last week. I was at 12:03 that I chose in the evenings to go through the messenger bag. Newspaper headlines frightened me still. Enormous blackened letters conveying the horror of the December 7, 1941 attack on Pearl Harbor. Photos showed the recent liberal arts student in pursuit of another kind of education at flight school in Pensacola. Coat and tie traded in for flight jacket and goggles. Mac and friends I would never know stood tall in aviator gear outside barracks and in the breathtakingly small landing zone on an aircraft carrier. I marveled at their smiles for the camera. Soon enough, still smiling Lieutenant McCarty and his proud crew posed for a more formal photograph, the tail of their plane in the background. My father's handwriting listing names and hometowns of enlisted personnel on the back. Anxious and fearful, all these years later, I touched a heavy metal object lying by itself at the bottom of one section. Now I would understand the surprising weight of the messenger bag. So it's the compass there. I rubbed the texture and contours of a round suede pouch. Another darker suede pocket within protected an aerial lid reckoning computer and a protractor for taking measurements on the handheld computer. Using only this basic equipment, a metal dial covered in measurements, to twist left or right over a graph, my pilot father and his co-pilot calculated coordinates via altitude and airspeed computations. Mac's still legible pencil dots pinpoint the location of the target. Such an unfathomable, unavoidable responsibility. What was the crew's assignment? How did these young chaps summon the courage for these operations? Not only was the reckoning computer hard for me to trust, but the plane resembled an airborne jalopy. Photos snapped from the rear of the cockpit showed dilapidated chairs and pedals, tiny windshield wipers, and two half-moon-shaped steering wheels. Just as words failed my dad, my imagination failed me. I stopped reading and said, enough for one night, I thought, and too much for any lifetime. Mac's silence about wartime had taught me to be extra sensitive to my college students returning from tours of combat duty. I recalled his wordless anxiety when his nephew Daniel, a Marine lieutenant, departed for Beirut immediately after the 1983 barracks bombing. My dad, way out of character, remained mostly grumpy and preoccupied until Daniel's safe return. A generation later, Thomas, Daniel's youngest child, developed keen interest in military history. From a photocopy of Mac and his crew, Thomas identified the plane, partially visible in the background, a, quote, consolidated PB-2Y Coronado. From that tidbit, the promising researcher outlined possible scenarios of Mac's tour of duty in the Pacific. Quote, I'm absolutely sure that in October 1944, he was transferred to BH-1, a maritime rescue squadron. Those seaplanes rescued a lot of aircrew. I bet that gave your dad some peace. I hear he was really nice. So, I would say that home emptying was the best paying, most rewarding job of my life. Because when you are living it, it's very hard to appreciate it fully. But I was the one that got to step back and see the tapestry of all the lives that had taken the 10 steps from the back gate to the back door, all come full circle, and to appreciate it in that way. It was 56 years that were very rich in love. So, what did I do with everything? And by everything, I mean more things than I've ever seen in one place in my life. So after family and friends had what they wanted, and my mother wanted certain things that she loved thinking of being at my home, I still had a full house. And so I began to do things like put things in boxes and then throw broken things away. People were helping and sorting, and this is one of the most vivid memories of that summer. A friend of my mother's was in the kitchen, and she was running her fingers this way over the scalloped edges of a platter. She just kept running her hands, she ran her fingers over the scalloped edges this way. She said, "This is so beautiful." I said, "Would you like it?" "Really? Oh, I would love it. It is so beautiful." "And would you like it?" became the question of the summer. And I gave it all away. And therefore, I've got 250 homes full of the extended life of these things. Having taught college students, pretty much wedding registries went out of business in their towns because they got their first set of china, they got beds, they got dressers, they got whatever they needed. Teenage kids in the neighborhood near 1203 came over, and there were shrieks as they found vintage clothing to wear to school. And one favorite, someone I didn't know, came through and told me that saw something and said, "My daughter wins the prize every year at the West Virginia State Fair for her cakes." And I said, "Hey, does she have a cake stand?" "No, she's never had a proper cake stand." And so he left, teary, with his daughter's first proper cake stand, and I heard from his friend that his daughter never bakes a cake and she doesn't tell the story of where the cake stand came from. So there's always need. There's someone who lived in the country that I don't know, but someone did and had never had an air-conditioned trailer, and there was an air conditioner in the garage, so for the first time in Virginia, summer had air conditioning. There were trips to the dump. It was amazing. Tables that held everything, suddenly if you took everything off the table, it collapsed. I've never seen, it was sort of miraculous how that happened. It just held on as long as it could, and then, so everything found its home. Where many things are, I don't know. Where the bird feeders are, who knows? Who's sitting at my child's desk, I don't know. That's the best part, is the not knowing. And many things I do know. So before your questions and comments, I'm going to read to you. It was after a day of working outside, and it was on the patio, which is where we spend as much time as possible. Anytime during the year we could be on the patio, we were. And so a friend of mine from Charlottesville and Billy, we worked all day and we were relaxing on the patio. So it grew dark on the patio. Ah yes, outdoor nighttime gatherings give me back my childhood. When I glean the inviting hum of easygoing, starlit conversations, I hear once more those low voices of yesteryear, naturally lowered as the sun set on the patio. Sunday's warm, soothing timber at closing time. Lightning bugs blink, globes protect candles from the wind, clusters of votives burn low. The moon, from sliver to round, lights the night. The Little Dipper befriends me as ever, and the North Star fascinates and comforts as it did when I twirled a ping pong paddle, reassuring in its consistency, a sign that I can always find my way home. On the 1203 patio, I first marveled that the earth was spinning, and I sought any inkling of movement with bare feet planted on a loose slate. Nighttime is the right time to plant bare feet again. Come, let's dawdle. Swing with me. Stand still, time. Tickle my fancy, North Star. You tickle my fancy. Thank you for having me. I look forward to any of your questions and comments. Thank you very much. Don't be shy about one single thing.
I don't have a question. I just wanted to share, hopefully get everybody else ready to share. But I'm Chris from the Beaches Museum. So we encounter people at this point in their life a lot because we do have a collection. So people will think to come bring us grandmas, whatever, and we have to be pretty specific about what we can take. Does it apply to beaches history, things like that. But sometimes we'll get a sneak attack, but they'll leave it on the door at night, or and it's very hard. Sarah doesn't let me do it anymore because I want to accept everything, but Sarah's a little firmer about it, which is good. But sometimes we get things in the mail, and one thing I got recently that your talk reminded me of was a postcard in an envelope. The woman wrote a note. She had recently lost her husband, and their family, when they would vacation through the 60s and 70s, they would buy postcards wherever they went. So she was going through the family's postcard collection and sending these great vintage postcards back to the historical society of that area. And I mean, I think we're supposed to think about it now, how cathartic it must have been, how difficult, but also how meaningful for her to go back through all of those family memories. And this particular one was a motel, oceanfront in Jackson Beach, that we didn't have a photo of otherwise. So I just thought that was a really special thing for her to do in a really difficult time of her life. And it was very appreciative. And we love postcards because they're small, easy to store.
Somebody else, yes.
I know you said that you felt like you grew to know your parents better and so forth, but how did you make that separation? I guess the problem I have, and being a teacher, I'm somewhat of a hoarder as well. I attach meaning to everything, and it belongs to my grandmother, my mother, my father, now my son. How do you separate
And so the story goes with everything. That's why there's so much storytelling. So I got a photograph recently of someone going on a job interview and wearing my father's cufflinks for good luck. So there were always stories. And I think what struck me and stays with me is how absolutely true it is that there are other ways besides money to assign value to things. And the things in the garage were valuable because they spoke of relationship. So for me, I mean, nothing's going to be given away here, and eventually it would go, as Chris mentioned, to a museum for that reason. But the things take on new life and new meaning and new stories, and the story goes with them. And so that's how I was able to do it. And I also have a small home, and that helped a lot. Somebody wrote me and said, I read your book, I admire what you did, but if I lived in that house, I'd have thrown everything out of my own and put everything from 1203 in my house. I would not have done what you did. It's a paradox in a way. The things matter, but because they're about relationships, and that in the end is what really matters. That's the best. I'm not saying it's easy. I mean, joy won, but there was a lot of yearning and heartache, and in the front of my book, I used the Leonard Cohen quote, there's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets through. And I was just broken heart, but I felt myself getting stronger and for the future, that coming through this, I was going to be stronger. It's not easy. Yes?
I thought when I saw you on TV, yeah, I guess it was yesterday, I get my days mixed up. The 1203, my childhood home was 2301. So I was getting chill bumps because when my parents moved in with my sister, we had to empty the house out. I was taking care of my quadriplegic husband, and I only had time when I took him 1 day a week to work. And my sister was the Gestapo woman and had to be in charge of everything. So she ran me out, got all upset. I was never allowed back in that home again. They put everything in storage. And my mom's still alive, but we never had the opportunity. And I was going to make it happen, and I got this book, and she will read it.
Yeah.
So
I'll be sure to sign it for her.
But because I think she's always in control, and she still feels like she has to have control, I don't know if we ever will be able to. 2 years later, my husband died, and my daughter moved in, and I had to get out so quick. And everything I got rid of is what I wished I'd kept. Everything I kept, I wished I hadn't. And the children today, too, I don't know what's going to happen because our world has changed where so many things don't even mean the same to the children now either. But I just got chill bumps when I said I have to come tonight.
Because she's going to empty my house if I don't watch busy. So a few things, and thank you for what you said. Some people have said that reading the book makes them reflect back in a different way on what their experience is. In your case, saying they didn't have enough time or whatever maybe. And so they are able to look at it differently and perhaps in a more positive way. In the back, where I offer suggestions, I say up front, every single situation is different. And there were some days I thought, this is a day that every hour, and there were church bells that rang on the hour, I was going to have another difficulty. That the gong of those church bells meant here comes another problem today. So you do not get the feeling from this that it was easy. But and I think all I have to offer you really is empathy and to say that the way I looked at it changed. When I saw whatever this situation is, I'm going to look at it as an opportunity, made all the difference in the world. So hopefully you can sit your sister down and have a good... I'll tell you one thing, here's another thing that I'm so touched by with readers. They will say that they're choosing to read it aloud with someone. So I heard from people who said we're reading it to each other at breakfast. That's what we do at breakfast. Others are doing it on car trips. The passenger is reading it because there's so many stories, and then you want to tell stories too. It's a nice book to share with someone, and so we can only hope for the best, and life is hard. Thanks. Yes.
My situation's a little different. I'm not cleaning out my parents' home. I'm cleaning out my own. My children are grown, they all have lovely homes. They have their own things. They don't need mine. And my things don't fit in really with their things. There are few things that I will take with me because I have bedrooms at their house that I can put maybe a bookcase in, or, you know, but like my oldest daughter's house, there's even a desk in the bedroom, okay? I mean, there's already a desk there. I'm just finding it very, very hard to decide what goes, what stays, and where does it go, and because nothing's going to stay, really.
Right. Well, and nothing physical stays in the end anyway. So I'm going to answer your question and go back to something you said about kids today. So I'm going to come back to what to do with these things. Here's the thing. My mother would be astonished that this book exists. Because she always thought you didn't notice that X happened. You didn't see the new pie stand. I didn't know what a pie stand was. There were no pies on it. What is this? And but I was paying attention. But how much everything mattered to me in the end, that's the point. So I think when millennials and the generations closest get written off as not caring, they may be saying that now, but that does not mean. So at a book talk, someone said, tearily, she said, I had the worst relationship with my father. It was so difficult, I never got to know him. But when I was emptying the house, I found his letters home to his mother from Korea about every day he wrote about how much he missed her and that he cried at night and that he would give anything for her homemade ice cream. And she said, I knew my father in a brand new way. So one thing about this process is it's an opportunity to forgive people and let go of things, you know, this giving way. So I wouldn't write off the younger. Everything is changing. I don't know what I would have done without the photographs. Take pictures. So what to do with the things? So when you love something, and this is what gave me such joy, when I saw that giving that platter with the scalloped edges away had brought that much joy to someone, then that thing that I love has extended life somewhere else. And so when my students who work hard and some of them still paying off student loans didn't have money when they were getting married, for them to have a furnished house then the thing that you love is taking on new life, an extended life somewhere else. So that's how I chose to look at that. So I don't know how else to, and I will say this, I tell the story of moving my grandmother at 93, 2 miles away from her apartment that she was giving up to move in with my mother. And I couldn't understand until I emptied 1203 why my grandmother, she was sitting in the living room in the only chair left, immobile, not moving, and not caring a lot for me. Her ride to 1203. And she was leaving home. And all of her things did not fit. And as much as we could make fit, did. And some of them went. Another thing that people enjoy is giving things to people so you can see them enjoy them now. You know, if you know that so-and-so would love the ukulele, if you're not playing anymore, give it now and listen to the music from the ukulele. So there's joy to be had in seeing those things used. So I don't have all the answers, just there are lots of possibilities there. And it is hard. And I understand my grandmother's sadness now because she was giving up what had been home to her for 25 years. As much as she loved where she was going, that was her home. It's where she cooked. It's where she entertained. This is hard. It's interesting to me that there aren't any books about home emptying. There are books on everything. I don't think anybody wanted to write about it.
Well, they have the Swedish art of death cleaning.
Yes.
That was hard to read.
You know what? I'm going to speak to the Swedish, I don't know how many of you know about it. You want to describe briefly what that?
This woman from Sweden who's talking about cleaning out so that her children don't have to. So it's the Swedish art of death cleaning.
That's right. So there's also,
Death cleaning, like D-A-T-H.
okay,
Well, that's one thing my children said. Yeah, I don't want to have to do this when you're gone. You know, I don't want to have to go in there and take all this stuff out and do something with it.
Just leave it, let them do it.
that's what I say. That's what I say. That's what. So I want to speak to that, and I'm also going to speak to Marie Kondo and her tidying up. Okay, and the Swedish death thing. I believe that those things are going to be a passing fad. And someone said last night at a book talk, why, as the Swedish death thing suggests, would I want to pretend that every day was my last day? Why am I going to live that way when I could be looking at the daffodils? Why would I live like that? And with the tidying up has made people so anxious about having to clean out their house for their children. That was my job, to clean out that house. And so the woman said to me, I just hate to give up the books that my grandmother used to teach me to read. I said, why are you giving those books up? Well, I don't want my children to have to do it. So this is some kind of, just everybody needs to sit down and perhaps have a glass of wine and enjoy the things in their house. I don't know how it happened, and I will tell you this. It is really hard to understand what it must, I learned this, and I wish I had understood it better before I came to the house. I couldn't possibly know what a new vase meant to someone going through the Depression. It meant everything, to have something pretty, to put a flower in it. So what possessions meant to people who endured the Depression, endured the Second World War, I have no business judging that. So if the garage refilled every time I emptied it before I got to the bottom of the driveway, it started to fill again, so be it, is what I say. You know, I think there's too much now about what do I do with these things, nobody's going to appreciate it. Well, I just happen to know that this is what happened to me, and everybody appreciates what they have. When I go to get my hair cut, she says, well, how do you like it? I'm looking in a mirror from 1203. I say, I love it. I mean, the mirror is what I love. So I'm answering it as best I can. Every situation is difficult, but that thing, I read the article, and it's true that there is too much consumption, right? Well, it's just, we can just relax a little bit about it. Yeah. So this woman, those precious books she should give away so no one has to fool with it. And I said, are your children bothering you? She said, my daughter-in-law has told me to forget about it, enjoy my things, and she'll be happy to do it. I said, what are you worried about? But you know, she's got Marie Kondo hitting her in the head, and you know, you've got to empty the, just live.
Well, the only problem with that is if you have cleaned out 7 World War II footlockers and your parents moved, well, I don't know how many times. We lived in 9 different states and this stuff went everywhere. But the majority of it is in storage on Beach Boulevard at $260 a month. So, you know, I'm crazy too.
Well, all sorts of things are coming out tonight.
I can't get rid of, I'm having a hard time getting rid of things that meant so much to my parents. So I have now finished my father's high school essay. And now I have this single one to start the next day. And a lot of this stuff, I'm just back and forth to the storage. We've gone from 5 units down to 1.
Well, I know.
And I don't know, those are the photo albums.
Well,
Those are the photo albums, so what do you do with
I
those?
scan.
Oh, no, I have to.
Well, just
Yeah.
It's just, I left a lot of stuff for her, and it was a beautiful thing to say about the home, the actual home.
Yes.
But not, the memories are with you.
That's right. And so I tell the story in the postscript of who's at 1203 now, which is as unbelievable as me in the picture on the cover. So I think maybe what we can do, I'd love to hear your stories, and I'd like you to come up here and take a look at anything you would like. I'll be glad. I'll stay here and personalize. The books are already signed, and if you would like to have them personalized, I would be delighted. And I'm going to come down here to be more with you. So thanks again very much.
Honey.